when you shop for summer clothes. Think pink, pink, pink if you want that kelp that shows. Red is dead, blue is through, green's obscene, brown's taboo, and there is not the slightest excuse for plum abuse or chartreuse. Think pink.
G'day gorgeous. I've been really quiet for about 4 weeks. I think I said last time that I was off to Bali and I had intended on doing a couple of videos while I was in Bali, but apart from doing one Facebook Live, I didn't really do a whole lot. And it seemed like every time I was looking for the opportunity or a place to kind of, talk to you about something that I'd reflected on, it just kind of didn't seem like the right time, or I couldn't find the right equipment. And then I remembered I didn't take my tripod. So in little things. Anyway, the other thing that threw the spanner in the works, because I've now been home nearly 2 weeks, was that when I came home, my beautiful little dog, who I've had for 11 and a half years, was really sick. And he's been sick for about a year. But I think one of the things that amazed me was that a number of people have kind of been different reactions with regards to grief and loss. So I came home on the Wednesday night. It was very obvious to me that my dog wasn't his usual self, and I had to take him to the vet the following day, and really his issues were not resolvable, and we tried all sorts of things, but his body had basically said enough was enough, and I had to put him down the next day, which was very sad. But he was 11 and a half, and he'd had a really good life. I always said that it must have been, in his reincarnation space, he must have been ready for nirvana, because, your last life right before you reach nirvana has to be the best one. He had a pretty good life. But the impact, even though I kind of knew he was sick, and even though I was aware that his health was deteriorating, and I knew beyond a doubt that I couldn't keep him in this space where he was suffering, it still was a really kind of difficult experience, and a number of people have kind of reacted to it in different ways. And I'm always surprised to find that there are some people who don't have the same level of emotional connection to animals as I do. And I know some other people who seem to have highly sensitive kind of responses to animals, and some people have lost horses and had really big reactions to it, and people can't necessarily understand that, because they feel like this animal's a really big animal, and it's not like you can have it curl up on your lap. It feels a little bit different. But my main issue around that was to understand the impact of grief and loss. And grief and loss happens to us regardless of the circumstances. And the worst thing that we can do to ourselves is not take the time to acknowledge that a person or an entity or something that gives you some level of kind of emotional connection is now no longer available to you in your life. And that brings with it this sense of, hollowness or emptiness, like something's missing. And it's a really key component, and something that I think people just misunderstand, and they often downplay as it shouldn't be important, or I shouldn't be so upset about it. In reality, a lot of us, in our connection to our animals, is one that's very safe. We feel that we can be, our true selves with an animal, and an animal's going to love us anyway. And that's particularly strong in the case of dogs. So I just wanted to highlight the importance of recognising that grief and loss is a key component, and whether it's an animal or somebody that you had in your life, like we go through a grief and loss process when we lose a partner. Even if it was our decision to step back from the relationship, we still go through a grieving process. And that's just acknowledging that sometimes, you just feel a bit flat. You don't necessarily want to engage and do things with people. You find that you're a little bit sensitive, or, really easily upset, or, life just sort of seems temporarily like you lost your mojo. It's a really important thing to be aware of and to understand, and to give ourselves that little bit of space and time to just reflect on the good times. Particularly I think about the good times that I had with that beautiful little dog. But also to, acknowledge the loss. And that's part of the grieving process, is to allow yourself to reflect back on the good times. They're not all good, and I get that, especially when it's relationship based. But it's a really important process. And if we just try and ignore it and pretend that it didn't happen and move past it, or pretend that it didn't actually have an emotional impact, we actually do ourselves a disservice, and we make it more difficult for ourselves in the future. Okay, so that's my musing for this week. I hope to see you soon.
Pink for cheeks and pink at your lips, pink for shirts and all of your slips, just a touch of pink at your knees, and if you please, what? Pink chemise.